Skip it up and that up. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Rich, and I'm with Liana, and this is episode 12 of the Rich and Red podcast. I know we're back like 3 weeks later. No, I'm not dead. I'll give you a very, very, very Cliff Notes version of the lowdown as to what happened, minus the fact that Liana had some scheduling issues combined with what I had a flood in my basement, and I'm moving. So combining those two together was a complete disaster because I had to move all of my stuff out of here, and I only lost one piece of equipment. I lost my laptop, which isn't that tragic. It sucks, but it's not the end of the world. That could have been a hell of a lot worse, but I had to get everything out of here. I still have some stuff. That's how I'm recording this right now. I'm still in the same spot that the flood was. It's just bone dry. And luckily it doesn't smell like mold down here. Just the rugs got messed up. We had to toss those. So, and then combined with that, just different schedules that Liana and I had. So that's why it took a long time.
Yeah, I was actually down in Vermont for the weekend, which was an interesting cultural exchange.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah, going down to the most democratic state potentially in the Union, both the most democratic and the whitest state in the Union, was a real cultural exchange. I was actually thrown by how open various businesses were with political speech. We don't do that up here. We're really quite quiet.
We don't do that down here either in New York.
Okay, there's one like kind of sleazy motel near us that has all these, they're, you know, conservative signs, and it's like rah rah rah, but it's kind of like a local, that's them. But the fact that there were like, you know, anti-Trump sentiments in the windows of shops, and then, you know, images of Bernie Sanders with religious iconography, it was a good education. Because,
wow,
you know,
that's so weird.
It's so weird because, you know, you hear about the U.S. and separation of church and state and all that stuff, and then you go down there and see, you know, America's greatest socialist depicted like Jesus or the Virgin Mary, and it's like, what is going on?
That's dangerous for any politician to be worshipped like that.
Okay, not just me.
No, any politician.
Okay.
I don't care if it's Trump or Clinton or Obama or Sanders or whoever. Once you put them in that light that they're infallible,
yeah,
you're going to like dangerous territory, because that means that people have no logic. They're just worshiping another human being.
Yeah, we went into this coffee shop called Capitol Grounds on State Street in Montpelier.
Clever play on words.
Yeah, well, it's right by the State House. That's why. But the sizes, the small is called the conservative. The medium is called the moderate. The large is called the liberal. And the big 24-ounce coffee is called the radical.
Serious? Oh,
no. I took a picture of this, Rich. I can send it to you.
Send it to me. I'll put it in the video version of this.
I was like, I took a picture of it because, you know, us from Canada, we're sitting here going, are you kidding me? It was very, very interesting. And then, of course, the family we were down visiting, half of them are Trump supporters, half of them aren't. And so that was really interesting. My friend's dad, he still uses Brill cream, okay, to give you a picture of this guy. He looks exactly like the main character from Up. You know, that Pixar film with the old guy? He looks exactly like that. And he actually had to change barbers because the barber would not stop going on profanity-laced tirades about Trump while he was cutting this old, like, 82-year-old man's hair.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where was this again?
Vermont, which, you know, it's home of Bernie Sanders. It's Bernie Sanders' home state. So I guess people feel emboldened or entitled because it's such a safe democratic state, like on all levels. There's almost like, you know, if you're Republican, big deal. How Democrat are you is the bigger question. But it was just so interesting because the province of Ontario in Canada is the ultimate swing state. Our state decides elections in Canada. Really? Yeah. And so, you know, the nice thing about that is you get very, very used to people interacting with people who have different political opinions than you. And it's all just sort of, we're a very multicultural city on top of a, politically diverse city. And so you go downtown, it's very socialist, the party we call the NDP, which is the New Democratic Party. They're basically the Socialist Party. The Liberals, which are sort of the de facto moderate party, which swung left in the last election. And then you've got the Conservatives, which tend to take up the suburbs. So where I am, we're right on sort of the dividing line between the two areas. And so, our neighbors will have a conservative sign, we'll have a liberal, which means moderate sign, and the people down the road will have an NDP sign. And somehow we don't end up screaming at each other. We deal. And so it was really... It was a really uncomfortable experience to go in there and have politics so in your face.
That's a U.S. I mean, that's a little bit extreme what you set up there, even with the coffee shop, how they name their sizes of coffees.
Yeah.
But that's just how the states are right now, man. It's really, really, really weird. And it was interesting, Lana. I'll let you say it because I want you to. How they depicted Bernie up there in artwork is borderline disturbing.
I got a picture of that too. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Tell them what happened, and I'll give my take on it because it is very disturbing.
It is basically, the halo that they put on images of Christ in the Catholic Church?
I do, yes.
Yeah, it's a picture of Bernie Sanders with that halo behind him and an approximation of the Sacred Heart.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's so dangerous, man. I was just saying to her before we started recording is that I don't care whether it's Sanders, Trump, Clinton, Obama, whoever the case may be. Now The Rock wants to run in 2020. Fucking kill me. I mean... that's just...
Isn't it The Rock and Tom Hanks specifically? Like, that's the ticket?
Good job. Oh, my God. We're done, then. It's... I don't know. Politics in the States is such a joke. But anyway, putting that aside, we can make a whole podcast just about that. When you put any person or human being in a light that they're a divine deity, that pushes, because us as apes... For some reason, our brains, the logic in our brains shut off when it comes to religion. And we're just like, all right, we worship whatever this person says, we praise, and we don't question. When you have someone, especially a politician, that is seen in that light, even if it's Sanders, it's dangerous because people now go, how dare he is infallible? How dare you question him? He is our supreme leader. And for them to be doing that up there is fucking weird, man.
Well, it's just extra odd because, the perception of Bernie Sanders up here was that he was this socialist, like bordering on communist. He's borrowing, phraseology from the Bolsheviks, talking about revolution and the people and all this stuff. I mean, that's straight out of like the Communist Manifesto, that sort of propaganda. And we hear this and go, and you say we're socialists? No one would be talking that way up in Canada. And like such a fundamental center point of communist thought is that religion is the opiate of the masses. And so I can kind of get other politicians. Like if somebody were to depict Mike Pence that way, at least that's somewhat consistent. The guy's, what is it? He's conservative, Christian, and Republican in that order?
He is so fucking conservative that if there is a female politician, he will not have lunch with her alone because he is married.
Yeah. And so at least, at least if he was depicted in that light, I'd be okay. At least this is within his own methodology. But not only is Bernie Sanders like a card-carrying democratic socialist, he's also Jewish. And they put him in Catholic iconography. I'm sitting here going, I have to take a picture because words cannot do justice to what I am seeing right now. I'm sure it's well-meaning. They love their Bernie. I mean, you see baby onesies, the little single things where you do the snappy dome between the legs. They've got Bernie on that. They've got, Bernie on t-shirts, Bernie on coffee mugs, Bernie on tote bags.
No.
The fact that anybody from Vermont is known outside of Vermont is, other than Ben and Jerry and the house on Scandal, you know, is a novelty for them. So I guess they're like, yay, we're relevant. But it was really interesting. And then to get sort of the, you know, such the human touch of the family and to talk to them and to see, you know, all these different people with radically different political ideologies. Everybody gets along. Everybody's a good person. Everybody was fun. Everybody was fun to be around.
As long as people aren't choking the shit out of each other due to their ideologies, then okay, that's fine. Strange that they're looking at Bernie as a divine deity. You know, that's just pushing it, and that border is undangerous. But if no one's hurting each other up there, fine.
Well, things almost came to blows over wind farms. I shit you not, I thought fisticuffs were going to break out, but it's Vermont. Environmentalism is like the state religion, but it was interesting. It was really interesting to see it on that family level, to go down for a birthday party and to sort of be enmeshed in U.S. politics in that way. And then to discover that spicy does not mean spicy in the whole state.
What is that? Okay, you got to explain that now, too.
I'm a spice fiend. Like Trinidad hot sauce, scorpion pepper actually burn your gums. That means good.
You are a spice fiend?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to see my spice collection?
Holy shit. You were like, your hair is red as the day is long. I would never think you were into spice.
But I grew up in a neighborhood full of people from Trinidad. And so you go over and there's the hot sauce. And I think it's an acquired taste. Like you kind of build up.
I would drink habanero like Gatorade. So I'm just like shocked. Yeah, okay. I don't.
Habanero's a drier spice. That I have the habanero oils and it's amazing for Mexican. But yeah, and it's funny you use jalapeno in Ethiopian cooking. I just learned that. So odd to me. But yeah, I love my Trinidad hot sauce. And so I'm talking like, you know, it doesn't start burning until it hits like down here and then it comes back up. That's my jam on hot sauce. And so I go to the Mexican. Oh, it's so good. I love it. It just makes me feel alive, you know, and You go down to the Mexican restaurant and they're like, you want mild or hot salsa? I'm like, hot, please, as hot as you can make it. And it comes up, it's like, okay, this has flavor, but this would be medium at best to me. And the food is super fresh there. Okay. It's super fresh. It's really, really good quality food. But they really are. I mean, they have a Chinese restaurant, a Thai restaurant, a Mexican restaurant and everything like that. But it's like Thai-ish, Chinese-ish, Mexican-ish, you know, it's interesting. And my friend who's from down there, she came up to Toronto once and got so spoiled by the food because we've got every type of cuisine you could possibly imagine and then some fusions that people made up. Oh yeah, there was actually a 4-part series in the New York Times about how diverse the food is in Toronto.
I'm just still, I can't get over that you're into spicy food. You were like not the poster child in any way. Not to assume or any stereotype you, but I would think like, you know, there would be like, you know, some ketchup that was too spicy for you.
Yeah, I know, it's really funny. It's because I grew up in a neighborhood. I mean, if you've seen The Wire, you know, that TV show, the neighborhoods they keep showing in that part of Baltimore look identical to a neighborhood called Regent Park, and then the southern part of Jane and Finch, which is where I grew up in Toronto. It looks exactly like that. I watched the show and it's like, oh my God, they got the trash right. Like that couch in the middle of the commons, that happens.
Holy, that's funny, man. See, my fiance, she is like so anti-spice that if I kiss her after having like... I forgot the name of that. What's that shit that people put in everything?
Sriracha?
It's like a thick sriracha. She's like, oh my God, you had sriracha. Oh, my, hurting my lips. It's like, seriously? Like I could drink sriracha, man.
My husband, bless him, I make vegan pork and beans.
Are you vegan?
I'm pescatarian, but I can't do dairy or like hard animal fats that aren't fish. So I do a lot of vegan cooking.
Because I'm going vegan next week.
Oh, I can send you a bunch of recipes.
I'm doing this. This isn't a plug where it's not a sponsor. There's this place called Fresh and Lean that they make you your 3 meals a day.
Oh, awesome.
For 7 days a week, because there's no way, especially with this move and shit, we don't have the time. And my fiance, because she's a cheap ass, sorry, Lawrence, I just got to keep it real, you are. She's like, I'll cook everything. I'm like, no, you won't. There's no way with an infant and all this other crap going on that you're cooking. So I'm like, I'm going to try this. It's like $150-ish a week, which is basically what you kind of spend on groceries anyway. And the food is fresh. Like they actually send it to you it cold. It's not frozen because they cook it. So I'm giving it a shot because my doctor said I should like a while ago said I should try vegan, and I'm going to give it a shot.
I can send you guys a ton of vegan recipes, and one of them, it's super simple. It's vegan, like Franks and beans. Okay. And it's literally like, here's all the ingredients. Put them in a pot and let them cook for half an hour. That's it. But I substitute a portion of the ketchup with sriracha. And I'd made this thing 4 times before my husband said, this is really spicy. I'm like, oh yeah,
he's not down with spicy?
He's better than he thinks he is because he's sort of gotten a tolerance over the years living with me. I mean, we're going on 20 years next year. So he has had
wow, good for you.
Yeah, he has had his insides burned more times than he can count because I do Thai, I do, Mexican, all this stuff. Indian. I love authentic Indian food. And he gamely attempts the spice, but he has gotten very good at finding the ways to dampen the heat. He's not as spice intolerant as he thinks, but it certainly isn't what I do. No,
my fiance is straight up like like there's sometimes you could get certain like pizza sauces to make pizza with, and she's like, oh, this is kind of spicy. I'm like, and I can't even register it. I'm like,
yeah,
where are you getting spice from? What planet is there spice in this?
This is what I would consider savory, but not spicy.
Well, she's an enigma too. Like, when I met her, she had 4 kids, and I'm thinking that she's going to be a coffee fiend. So I bring her to a Starbucks. She's like, yeah, I don't drink coffee. I'm like, how? How do you not drink coffee?
Does she drink tea?
She'll drink some tea. She hates coffee though. Hates it. I'm like, man, I would drink 20 cups a day if it didn't kill me.
See,
I love coffee.
I like the espresso Turkish coffee, Ethiopian type coffee. I cannot drink regular coffee.
No, me too. You're like me with that. I like the strong, like I need that heavy, strong coffee, like that cheap ass piss water that you get at a gas station.
It's also the dark roast, because the darker the roast, the more they burn off some of the oils that can impact your stomach in a bad way.
See, actually, it's funny because the darker roast end up, not that it ever bothers me, but I'll feel it a little more. But I love strong, bold, dark coffee.
I think you're going to have to come up to Toronto, Rich, and we'll go on a food tour between Timmy Ho's, our omnipresent coffee shop, the Canadian Starbucks, and the various spicy food places. We need to record all of this.
That would be badass. I'm serious. We'll do that sometime.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm that far away from you. Yeah. Because I'm all about coffee and I'm all about spicy shit.
Yeah. There are so many different types of coffee in this city. It'll blow your mind.
It's so funny because I remember my dad got me into spicy stuff, because I remember we got back in the day, the first spicy thing that I remember, and boy, do I remember it, I'll tell you why in a second. We got hot pepper pizza. And I remember my dad warning me, saying, these are spicy. Mm-hmm. It'll probably bother you. And I pounded 3 slices of it because it would taste so good. The whole next day, my stomach was killing me, though.
and then you feel the burn on the way out.
But then it must have yeah. But then it was it must have put a layer of titanium in there, because ever since, spicy stuff doesn't bother me. It was so weird. It was like I popped my spicy cherry with pizza.
Yeah, it's true. I like the rush you get from the spicy food.
I just like the flavor. It doesn't even give me a rush anymore. I love the flavor. I love the flavor. There's nothing better than having a slice of pizza or anything, or even rice, brown rice with espresso on there, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Espresso, did I just say? Yeah, brown rice with coffee on it is incredible.
You mean brown rice with sriracha?
That's what I meant to say.
I got that.
I said espresso. Yeah, can you imagine putting coffee on your rice?
Actually, it's funny. I had espresso flavored balsamic vinegar in Vermont.
What?
Yeah, it's really tasty. Have you ever, there's this whole trend now with flavored olive oils and flavored balsamic vinegars that you combine for salad dressings because of all the like good stuff in balsamic vinegar and olive oil. You know, it's supposed to like lengthen your telomeres or some shit like that. I don't buy any of it. I just want it to be tasty. So they infuse balsamic vinegar and olive oil with these different substances. So you have like lime and lemon and curry and espresso, and the espresso mixed with like a blood orange is absolutely delicious on salad.
Wow, that does not sound like it would be, but I guess it is.
But it kind of tastes a bit like a you ever had like a Terry's chocolate orange?
Yes.
It tastes kind of like that. So
they sweeten it then.
The balsamic vinegar has kind of a natural sweetness to it. So it has that slight sweetness, and then it depends on what you put in your salad as well.
Okay. Well, I know balsamic. Yeah, balsamic does in general have like a sweet side to it.
Yeah.
Because it's aged vinegar, isn't it? Isn't it like almost like not rotten, but it's, they age it.
So you got the slight sweetness from the balsamic with the espresso, and then you got the slight sweetness from the orange with the olive oil, and it just, with kind of spring greens and some avocado and...
Oh, that sounds good. Holy shit.
So good. Yeah. And it's totally healthy.
Man, that sounds incredible, actually.
Yeah, if you're going to go vegan, you need to embrace the avocado.
Oh, I love avocado. That's part of why I'm having this place make the meals for me, because I could try different things and see what's good. And I don't even know where to begin to go vegan on my own. So like, I know there's cookbooks and stuff like that, but there's like, my kitchen is full of boxes right now. What friggin'... Yeah, I'm going to sit there and trip over gigantic boxes while I'm trying to, slice up an avocado. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so
I'm not a big fan of those things that it's like, oh, you're going to add arrowroot and agave and all that stuff. Like, no, that's way too complicated, and you don't know how your system is going to react. You start with like the really basic kind of complete proteins, your chickpeas, your lentils, your tofu, and then, your avocado, your eggplant if you can tolerate it. And then you go from there. Your lima beans, your edamame, those are sort of your vegan staples. And once you move on from there, if you want to make a buttermilk substitute, you take a cup of soy milk, drop in a tablespoon of vinegar, and let it sit. And then that'll kind of thicken up anything. But, those are sort of your basics. If you start going into those really, really complicated, like 20 different ingredients in vegan food,
you'll quit.
And you can start having... allergies or reactions, and you don't know what it is
because it's so out of left field. Yeah, your body's like, what the hell am I doing with this? You know what I mean?
And some of those foods are very high fiber, and that can take an adjustment as well.
I know. Well, Liana's trying to nicely say is that your ass is going to explode for like 48 hours.
We had this game down in Vermont. It's called Does He Stink? Because apparently garlic is the big health trend right now. So they're doing these garlic capsules. And if you eat too much garlic, you sweat it out. And that's combined with the natural deodorants that in some cases don't really deodorize.
No, God.
In general, the rule of thumb was if a guy looked like he stunk... he would gonna stink.
So BO and garlic, the BO is already bad enough to begin with, then you got the garlic going. God.
And they're the friendliest, like nicest people, and you're sitting here going, "You are so nice, but you're making my eye water." Yes. Oh my God.
Wow, no, man, you got to have antiperspirant. I'm sorry. I know there's some people that are all natural, everything, like, but no, you need antiperspirant, or else you're gonna smell like hell.
And then there's like, you go from that to this redneck guy with a bullet necklace sitting on a bench playing a banjo with his little Jack Russell Terrier.
Holy shit, talk about two extremes.
Yeah, but you talk to him about his banjo, and of course, it's like this vintage, like super rare, awesome banjo. And it's all, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And I mean, even the rednecks are nice in Vermont. It's really funny, but the redneck smelled better than the eco hipsters.
Oh yeah, of course, because the rednecks will actually use friggin' soap.
Yeah, which was mind blowing. He didn't look like he used soap, but he smelled like he used soap.
Well, at least he smells like you. So
Exactly.
maybe he puts like the fake dirt on to make himself actually feel
to
like,
make himself look authentic.
He has like the redneck makeup kit.
It's true.
You know, like he sits there with Dove soap, and then he has like his redneck makeup kit that he sits there and stares in the mirror and uses.
Oh, he was wearing like a Confederate flag vest.
Oh God.
Yeah, with the bullets around his neck, and this little Jack Russell sitting by his feet, looking like he does this every day. And he was outside the bookstore with, you know, all the Bernie stuff inside and the Lindy West table inside. So I went in, saw that, went, I'm not buying anything here. But it was an experience. It was definitely a cultural thing to see that.
This is so. I got to go visit Vermont now because it's so weird. I didn't think it was so extreme in all different directions. Like Vermont, you would think would be like docile everything. You know what I'm saying?
You would, but then you go into the gas station and it's like like you see the keg of kombucha. Like kombucha to them is like beer.
I like kombucha, so I'd be down with that though.
Yeah, it's like blueberry and like grape kombucha or something. But you get like it's fresh. You get it right from the tap.
Getting shit like that down here, like getting even like you got to get like the pre-made stuff at the grocery store, and it's like $8,000 for like 12 ounces of it.
Yeah,
I'm
exaggerating. Meanwhile, in Vermont,
but
like the gas station makes it out back, and then they just kind of bring it in because that's their deal. They're trying to get like organic farming and artist co-ops and things like that because they've got a great state college system and no jobs. So they spend all this money to educate their locals and then they leave. They go to Massachusetts or New York or other parts of New England. And it's actually a serious issue there because they're spending all this money to educate the workers of other states.
Why do they have no jobs there? I didn't know that about Vermont.
Because there's more cows than people, and their largest city is,
well, that's a pretty straightforward, that answers everything reason.
Yeah, like the biggest city, like Burlington, is I think up to 600,000 people, which isn't even as big as Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing for a major city. Not to even have 1 million people in it is nothing.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the biggest. That's where the airport is. That's where the international airport is in Vermont, and you're 2.5 hours from Boston.
Okay.
So if you like sort of the city life, if you want to have any job in finance or computing or anything like that.
Or any job that will, support you. You don't have to leave the state, basically, unless you're going to become a farmer or something like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's all this organic farming. Like, how do we repackage farming so that we can live in a living wage in America? Organic, all these superfoods and all this stuff. So they're really pushing it. And then they have all these artist in residence programs, which is where all the stinky people come from, right? Like you see, there was this beautiful like old Gothic house. It looked like the Haunted Mansion from Walt Disney World across from it wasn't a hotel, it was an inn. And you see them all piling out with like the Misfits patches and everything like that. And they stunk. And so I'm like, oh man, those people were in there in that beautiful old house. But you see them with the black and the eyeliner and the mohawks and all that stuff because they can go in there really cheap. And then they sit on the corner without a permit and they play their music and they make some money.
What's with all the stinking though? What is with all the stinking when there's natural soaps? I know there's natural soaps.
Well, it's the acidity level in your body. Mm-hmm. So if you're eating a lot of things and you got to watch this with a vegan diet because proteins pull down the acidity. Anything that's a starch increases the acidity in your body, even if it's a fiber. Okay. So you got to watch that you're not padding your vegan diet with starch calories. You need that protein. Or what you start doing is going into sort of this, even if you go totally low carb, you get ketones, and then you get this kind of really sickeningly sweet, almost rotting fruit breath.
Oh God. Yeah. I totally envision that with how you described it too. That's terrible.
And then if you go like too low protein, then you get sort of the vegan sweats, which is that vaguely yeasty smell because your body's not running optimum. I mean, human beings are omnivores. We have molars and canines. We need a combination of, those plant materials that we grind up and then protein. However you decide to do that is up to you. But yeah, it's a commitment. I was pure vegan for 3 years, and traveling is ridiculously hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Because vegan, and I thought LA was going to be awesome.
For vegan?
Yeah. But, unless you want to pay a ridiculous amount in Beverly Hills, their idea of vegan is a salad with some olives in it.
Oh, God. That's like having grass with...
Grass with some grass.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and we actually had a cameraman who was vegan hospitalized in LA because he didn't watch his diet.
Really? What happened?
Yeah. He just didn't take care of himself, and it was really hot that summer, and he got sick. And my poor husband, he's like, okay, I'm going to drive him over to the hospital. We're in West Hollywood on a Saturday morning.
Oh, God.
So my husband drives our cameraman into the hospital in West Hollywood, and he's complaining of like stomach pains and dizziness and all this stuff, and they assumed they were a gay couple that had been out partying the night before.
God, that must have been so awkward. That's incredible. That's such a great story, though.
And of course the cameraman had those blonde frosted tipped like spiky hair.
Oh, so okay, it perpetuated, yes.
Yeah, and so my husband was sort of the older, richer, kind of Jewish gay guy, and then here was his little, like, boy toy frosted tip. It's so funny. In retrospect, my husband calls me from the hospital, says, Jeff's okay, but they think we're a gay couple. I'm like, are you running with it? When in Rome. He goes, there's only so far I will go with this deception.
That's amazing.
It was
so
really funny.
What happened? What? Because he wasn't eating enough, or he wasn't eating what? Like, what the hell happened?
Well, when you don't get enough nutrition, you start getting dizzy. Of course. Proteins last longer, and you need a combination of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And it's also that if you don't take care of yourself, you can get dehydrated, you can get dizzy, there's a whole bunch of sort of physiological mechanisms that can go way out of whack. And so because he had this ethical opposition to eating animal products, he just wasn't eating.
Oh, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, he just wasn't. And I mean, back then the cameras were a good 25 pounds. And shoulder mount. So he's lugging around, a 25-pound camera, and then a backpack or a bag with all the batteries, which is an extra 15 pounds at least, and then all your tapes. So he's lugging 40 to 50 pounds on his back, and he's not giving his body fuel.
Proper nutrients, yeah.
Yeah. And that only lasts so long.
Yeah, that's why I don't have a moral opposition to eating meat. It's more like if I was in a situation like that, and if I do actually, if I do like this vegan thing, I'll get a piece of goddamn fish. If I'm in a scenario where it's like, okay, either starve or have fish. I think I'll have fish.
Well, and everybody's very different. Like my husband cannot do vegan. He gets hypoglycemic.
Does he really?
Yeah, his blood sugar gets way out of whack. He needs the animal protein to sort of absorb all of it. Whereas I do a lot better, but even me every so often, I'm just sort of like, you got to watch the heavy metals in fish. If I eat too much fish,
mercury,
I just kinda,
mercury.
Yeah, and I start feeling kind of blah, and then I'll go and I'll make like a big thing of tofu and edamame, and I'm like, oh, so good, and people are like, you're crazy, I could never eat that. It's like, no, you don't understand. It's the way most people smoke weed is the way I eat tofu. I do it for effect, and after a while, I convince myself it tastes good.
Oh, yeah. Wait, do you have straight up tofu, like with nothing on it, or?
I like the tofu either done like teriyaki style, Thai mango with the spicy, or spicy peanut sauce. Those are my
the spicy peanut sauce is my shit.
So good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I could live off that stuff. Spicy peanut tofu with the little bits of ginger in it. Amazing. And then you throw in your like Asian vegetables like your bok choy or your, you know, cabbage or whatever. And then a little bit of like carrot or your edamame and boom, you're set. But you can't eat that every day because, you know, the polyphenols and all that stuff. You have to balance it out. Variety is the spice of life.
That's why I'm having this shit made for me, because I don't know the whole formula yet, and I'm not going to go into uncharted territory not knowing what I'm doing. You
basically have to go to school to eat, and not everybody is willing to make that commitment.
Well, that's why I have a teacher. Basically, I'm having the teacher cook for me. That was a terrible analogy, but
that's smart. No, I get what you're saying. It's you're hiring a tutor to do your homework for you.
Yeah, because there's no way. Yeah. Even my mom's like, "Oh, I'll cook it for you." I'm like, "No, you won't. Like, you're full of shit. Like, you won't have the time to cook it. I know you won't. You could tell me whatever the hell you want to tell me. Yeah, it would be cheaper, but you know, if you think about it, it's not, because then the time investment to make all the food, you know, is taking your time away from other things. So it's still costly in other ways.
See, that's why I cook in volume. Like, I'll make enough food for 10 people, and then I'll Tupperware it and put it in the fridge, and that's the food for the week.
That's smart.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's my Sunday. I just do all my cooking for the week, and then, okay, Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this, because, you know, when we're all over the place, and my husband's not necessarily keeping the same hours as I am, he knows it's there, because otherwise I'm pulling the McDonald's and Burger King bags out of the car. And that smells awesome when it's been there for 3 days.
What, your husband does this?
Yeah, he goes to McDonald's.
I can't do... See, people, it's so funny. Yes, guys, I know I'm fat. Let's just put that out there. The rest of the reason, like, oh, you're just saying that you don't go to McDonald's just to say it. I'm like, no. If I had McDonald's, one, I would be so fat that you'd roll me around like I was a giant beach ball. And secondly, I would be shitting my brains out all day. Because for some reason, McDonald's just, I can't. Like, my body just, like, shuts down and just wants it all out, like, fast.
It gives me insomnia.
That's a weird reaction. Interesting.
Apparently, there's flavor enhancers in the food akin to MSG, which might be giving you the issues, too.
Yeah, I can't do. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're so lying. I bet you go to McDonald's every day. I'm like, no, if I went, I can't. I would explode in other ways than if I went there every day. Yeah, it's just something with it, man. They have to be putting something in it because my body just hates it. My body hates.
It's funny the judgments that people make about people's eating habits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're like, oh, you have fast. I'm like, no, you dumbasses. Like, yes, again, I know I'm fat. I'm not sugarcoating it in any way and not in denial about it. But if I had fast food every day, like, my stomach wouldn't handle it. And secondly, yeah, I would be one of those guys you would see. I think I talked about this like one time before. You'd see what those guys and those really, 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 really fat guys in those carts because they can't even walk from like 10 feet. I would be one of them. There would be no way I could do it. But yeah, I can't like super fast food. Like, I can have pizza from time to time, or I could have, you know, like my fiance come over, like, we're too busy, she'll get Chinese, but like straight up fast food, even Chinese kind of bothers me now. I can't do that often anymore either. But straight up fast food, like McDonald's or Wendy's or something like that, I'm done. No way.
Yeah, because there's so many chemicals in it. I know if I mean, McDonald's is something back in the day when I was still eating meat. If I had to drive a long time and needed to stay up, I'd eat McDonald's.
That's so strange. That's interesting.
It's this weird stimulant. I don't know what's in it, but I cannot sleep if there's some additive in it. And I mean, there's so many additives in McDonald's. Who knows what it is, right? But yeah, it's really funny that, and then, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the McChicken sandwich at McDonald's is this big constipation cure because it is the Japanese bullet train. And this is why I'm reminded that we don't have bullet train. And this is why I'm reminded that we don't have sponsors on this podcast, because McDonald's is never sponsoring our program.
Well, it was funny. I had a video up recently where it's so strange how in different cultures, like KFC, even though it's an American thing where it started, KFC is like worshipped almost in China, to the point that I think it was 1987 when KFC first launched in China. They have a special anniversary edition smartphone made by Hawaii.
It's a Christmas food.
Yeah,
Christmas Eve food in Japan.
People were telling me that, and in China, I guess too. And you could get this phone, this special edition that has the Colonel's face on the back of the phone, and it's red, and you could go and you could order food from your phone, which that's no big deal. You could do that with Starbucks. If I want to go, which I probably will after this, I want to get a strong coffee. I'm probably going to pre-order it on my phone and go get it. That's not a big deal. But the weird part is, because of course it has to be weird, China weird, is that you could control the jukebox from the app on your phone. So if you want to play like a birthday song for your friend, you can select it on the phone. I'm just like, but like, think about it. Like, talk about like a totally fat ass thing to do. Could you imagine like if I or anybody in general, man, I love Kentucky Fried Chicken so much that I got their special edition phone with Colonel Sanders' face on the back of it. It's just amazing how cultures are so different, man.
I've kind of feel that way about Coke though, right? I mean, nobody likes Coca-Cola. We know it's bad for us, but the culture surrounding Coca-Cola with like the Coca-Cola Santa and all those cool ads and, the nostalgia of that nickel bottle and all that stuff, it really has culturally got our hooks into all of us, and brilliant marketing. I have to kind of hands off to the people who design those campaigns. It's powerful.
Well, it's just amazing because I don't think that would work in the States, though. Like the Coca-Cola thing, all right, that's like a sense of nostalgia or something like that where they have the holiday stuff. But could you imagine like your daily driver phone being a Kentucky Fried Chicken smartphone? Like in the States, that would never fly, ever, ever, ever fly.
See, as a snotty tech nerd, I see the iPhone as the McDonald's of cell phone brands.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Most people don't actually know what's in it, and yet they consume copious amounts of it anyway. Like,
that's why I always laugh and I get sad inside when I see, like, some 17-year-old girl who has to have an iMac. And I'm thinking, that's such an outdated piece of shit. But because it's super expensive, it has the glowing Apple logo on the back. I don't even know if they glow or not, but it has the Apple logo on the back.
They glow.
And it's like, oh, look, I spent a lot of money on this computer. I have no idea what I spent money on. I have no idea what processors in it, how much RAM I got. And I probably got robbed, which, no, you definitely did. But because it has that sense of prestige to it, here it is. Here's my Mac. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with it, but I got one.
I lecture once a semester at a local technical college about video games. And the first thing I do when I go in the room is scout the laptops that all the different students are using. Yeah. And the business students, dollars to donuts, have the Surface Pro.
Okay. I have no issue with that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The gamers, they usually have the lower end, like Lenovo laptops. So it's like, oh, wow, your parents let you buy a laptop for college and you picked a gaming PC. Those are the ones I know are going to ask a ton of game-related questions at the end of the talk. The business students are going to talk a lot more about the marketing segment. The people with the MacBooks are going to be the duds in that class.
I know why. Let me see if I can predict why. Because their parents bought them the computer because they're like, what's a good computer for college? Because we need to get it and we have money, so we're going to throw it. So they buy it for their kid. Their kid doesn't really give a crap. Or maybe the kid wants a Mac because it is a Mac. And they're there because they kind of have to be.
Yep. They don't know why they're there.
Yep. Knew it.
Yep.
I knew that's why they had the Macs.
They're vaguely interested in like Kingdom Hearts or something like that. They played Mario Kart as a kid, and so they think it would be an easy credit. They are totally checked out. Unless they're wearing a plaid shirt.
God, we're going to have some Mac people hate us, but that's okay. Continue.
Yeah, but unless they're wearing a plaid shirt, if it's a woman with like blue or purple hair and a plaid shirt, she will be engaged. She's got the MacBook, but she's kind of an iconoclast. There's hope for her. She will engage. But that's because they're usually kind of gender non-conforming and are really interested in that end of the talk. And so they'll come up at the end and go, thank you for not being an insane feminist. But it's the one in the MacBook crowd that will do that. And it's really funny how predictive choice of laptop is in that setting.
That because it's like mommy and daddy are like, okay, here, what's a good computer for our college kid? And it's like, oh, those Macs, I know they're kind of good, even though they're not. Like, why would you buy a computer that has the memory soldered on the motherboard? Fine, I know the laptops now, they're keeping the batteries in them that you can't take them, which I think is insane to spend $3,000 on some of these high-end gaming peak laptops that the battery cannot be removed technically. I mean, you would have to open it up and then whatever. But at least you could upgrade the RAM. At least you could upgrade the hard drive and stuff like that. Why would you go out and buy an underpowered Mac that you can't even upgrade anything and you can't do anything anymore? You can't.
Because you can FaceTime.
Yeah, because that's something you can't do with anything else. Well, technically, yeah, if you don't have a Mac computer, you can't. But use Skype or use Discord or use whatever the hell else there is to use.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But yeah, I can't give you the causation. But I can correlate where, and you know, the gamers are the ones that are going to ask the most insightful questions about gaming. Like, they care. And you can tell by their computers, and they usually they're always at the back. They're never at the front of the lecture hall. They're always at the back. Yeah, and they're usually the ones that break the ice during question period. It's really interesting. The business students will sit there, kind of summon me up, and once I've taken a few questions from the core gamers who are there and they're actually caring about gaming, then the Surface Pro guy in the clothes that are a little too expensive to expect from a college student, you know, we'll start talking, and they'll be like laser focused on, you know, how do I convert this to making money? And I'm good with that. Like, we desperately need those people as sort of, you know, gamer allies because they can speak the you know, normie language. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what some of those people with the MacBooks who sit there like this the whole class, and they don't even have to take notes anymore. You have to provide all your slides to the professors to be distributed.
Yeah, so wow, man, talk about me being old. I thought I was high tech when I had voice recorders in my class when I was going to school. Now it's
I was really surprised at that, because the reason they say take notes is the act of writing it down actually helps you commit it to memory. So what are they doing in that class?
Yeah, seriously. Like, what? I don't. It's almost like school's getting too easy. Like, I know we're going on a totally different topic here, but that's how I feel. Though I feel it's like you have to have everything laid out for you with a silver platter, and it's like almost impossible to fail now.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you saw the debate going on between a psychologist that wrote an article in the New York Times about when when speech can be violence, and then Jonathan Haidt, who I absolutely adore, and his co-writer is saying, whoa, wait, I agree with your core principle. However, it's a really interesting back and forth between the New York Times and the Atlantic about what constitutes the line on college campuses. And, you know, that's one of those interesting things where nobody denies that there are issues. It's how we address those issues where things get messy.
Okay.
And I like those things as compared to that thing I was telling you about, the whole Doctor Who debacle, where people are just going at each other's throats over a TV character.
Yeah, I'll let you get it. This is actually one of the topics you're going to talk about. The other one I want to talk about is AMD coming out with Threadripper, but I haven't followed this at all. I heard bits and pieces. I know Anita Sarkeesian's involved. I know very little as to what's going on, but it sounds as ridiculous as I predicted it was going to sound. Yeah, so I'm going to take over the Threadripper part. I'm going to have Liana kind of take this over, and I'm going to have like the reactionary thing going on, because I don't know anything about Doctor Who either. I've never watched the show ever.
For people who don't know what Doctor Who is a beloved piece of British science fiction that stars a renegade Time Lord who goes by the alias the Doctor in a borrowed time travel machine called the TARDIS that looks like the old British police boxes. And he travels through time to different parts of history and meets different companions. And he has these various adventures, all while being pursued by this kind of mechanoid race called the Daleks, and then another sort of robot race called the Cybermen. And the Daleks are those kind of weird pyramids with the bumps on them, with the kind of toilet plunger as a nose that go, exterminate, exterminate, those guys. And the Cybermen are those kind of silver guys with the, looks vaguely like C-3PO.
Okay.
You've probably seen them around, but those are kind of the two main villains, and then you get into the, you know, the arch villain, the master, and all that stuff. But after, and I always get my numbering wrong because in a special they threw in this John Hurt character called the War Doctor, which messed up the numbering. But after 12 or 13, 14 if you count the Rowan Atkinson parody Doctors, we now have our first female Doctor Who.
Which in theory should be like, okay, good. Hey, we're embracing, you know.
Hey, we get to tell a different story, but
no, it's 2017 and everyone has to be offended by something because people have no fucking lives. Oops, did I say that? Continue, though.
Yeah, well, the division comes from people like me who go, interesting, I'll give it a chance. At first, I thought she was a little too glamorous. Because when somebody has been reincarnated this often, you expected them to be kind of quirky.
Yeah, I was going to say, explain the lore as to why, the other reason why being a female with this character is interesting, and with how the whole reincarnation thing, because I didn't know that until you explained it to me.
Because the Doctor is regenerated.
Okay.
And depending on the lore, a lot of the times, the Doctor doesn't remember anything from past regenerations, up until Matt Smith passed it off to Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi is the current Doctor. They only have, kind of like a Halo AI, only has 7 years. Yeah. The Doctor only has, I forgot, it's like 12 or 13 regenerations before that's it. You know, limited time offer. But because of some act of heroism, the Matt Smith Doctor was given, you know, a fresh set of lives. He punched in the cheat code and, oh, there you go. And so it kind of reset the board. And so Peter Capaldi, who's this old kind of gray-haired Doctor Who, is now regenerating into this woman, who is a woman who was also on Torchwood. And apparently she did a couple of small indie films where she plays this very quirky character, more what I'd expect from the role. But she's a blonde woman, you know, and that was where Anita Sarkeesian and other people, like, I didn't expect some of the sources this came through. Anita Sarkeesian kind of, no, we don't solve the woman problem, and we don't solve the, you know, the race problem and everything like that. And she basically said the only way she'd be satisfied is if the Doctor was a black trans woman.
Oh my God. Continue though. I'll refrain for a minute.
And I went, okay, well, that's pushing North American identity politics onto a British show. I would think that if you really want to be edgy, have an Arab or Indian woman, because let's face it, that's where the racial tensions in Britain are right now. Mm-hmm. We have to remember, like, this is a BBC show. Like, you don't get more British mother's milk with a side of Guinness than Doctor Who. The police box it used to be a police box. Now it's owned by the BBC. The London police can't even use it because they've trademarked it. And so, you know, this idea that anybody's going to be disappointed when something everybody wants to kind of represent them doesn't totally represent them. And I'm kind of sitting here experiencing all of this at the same time that I saw Spider-Man Homecoming. I love Spider-Man Homecoming, but they've taken an approximate of a known character and made her a person of color. And there's sort of this trend in comic books right now where, you know, Lana Lang...
Who are you talking about in there? I think
it's a spoiler, so I don't want to say it.
Oh, just say spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. At the end of the film, the Zendaya character, you know Zendaya, that Disney girl, she's like this biracial, real beanpole.
MJ.
Super likable. They reveal her as MJ at the end of the movie, which is the nickname for Mary Jane, which is, in the comics, Spider-Man's wife, eventually. And she traditionally has been this redheaded woman. In the Superman comics, Superman's first girlfriend was a redheaded woman. These characters in comics are now being replaced by people of color.
Because everything has to be fucking politically correct. That's why.
And I'm sitting here going, I think it's great that other people are included. And the reason I think it's great is that I have this little bit of sadness that now people who don't look like me are less represented. Because what people don't understand is when you're born looking the way I am, putting Scarlett Johansson in a red wig and a ton of body bronzer is not affirming gingerdom.
Yeah.
You know, because if I went for an audition for Black Widow, it would be, well, your skin's too freckled, you have to get a tan, and we have to coat you with makeup. They want that kind of smooth, less gingery, more normal skin tone, which is why somebody like Lindsay Lohan or Nicole Kidman goes crazy warping their appearance, right? And I try to explain this to some people, and they're basically like, well, you're saying that women of color should have to wait their turn. And it's like, no, I'm saying that there's a real deficit of roles for women in legit media overall, and creating like white women versus women of color Thunderdome doesn't solve the problem. No. that just sort of encourages the gatekeeping, that you've got all these kind of male decision makers deciding what subgroup of women is going to be trendy at any given time. And people are not real good at that nuance. People are going so nutty. And the interesting thing about Anita Sarkeesian saying, other than the black thing, the idea that the doctor should be a trans woman. Well, you're taking a character who has been male 12, 13, 14 times, who's counting. It's the same character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one could say the doctor has been coercively assigned male 12 or 13 times. Now the doctor is being coercively assigned female. Does the doctor have a gender at all, really? If they're this resurrected being, do souls have gender? This is a really interesting question to me with Doctor Who. And I admit I don't know the answer. I'm interested to see what they're going to do about it. And making the doctor a woman is precisely why I'm interested to see how they answer this question, because it isn't like, Battlestar Galactica, where it was a total reboot, and all of a sudden Starbuck and Boomer were, because in the original 1970s Battlestar Galactica, Starbuck and Boomer were both guys. Boomer was a black man. Now Starbuck was played by Katie Sackhoff, and Boomer was played by Grace Park. So it's just completely different characters. They acted like the original did not exist. In this case, it's the continuing adventures of the Doctor. So what does that mean? And to say it has to be a trans woman, well, we're kind of dealing with that, aren't we? I mean, the thing that's tricky about acting is that when Eddie Redmayne or Jeffrey Tambor plays a trans woman in a movie, that doesn't mean the actor is a trans woman, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same way, like a straight actor plays gay and they can't stop throwing Oscars at Tom Hanks. And so you got to wonder, like, what does that mean to say it should be a transgender black woman? Basically you're saying Laverne Cox should play the part? Like, what are you saying? It's
almost getting to the point where everyone's looking to be so diverse, to the point where it almost feels as equally, if not more artificial than when they weren't trying to do it. Like when I see a movie or something like that, it's like, it's just too much diversity. And I can't explain it, but people are like, oh, what do you think there should be? No, I'm not saying there shouldn't be a diversity. I don't care. That's the thing. I don't care, but I could just tell when it's being shoehorned and crammed the fuck in there. And honestly, with Spider-Man Homecoming, with some other stuff that I don't want to completely spoil the movie, mm-hmm. I'm like, that's so forced. That's so forced. I know why they're doing it. They're trying to make sure that no one's offended. And it annoys me. It annoys me that, look, and I said this before, like, I think when we're doing the E3 one, I don't care if the game or movie needs to have a Muslim, black, transgender woman as the main character because it fits. great. I have zero issue with it. But when I could just sense, I'm sure you can too, when you go see a movie or play a game, it's like they're really trying to appease everybody right now, and it doesn't feel natural. Then I have an issue. And it's not because... What were we going to say? I'm sorry. It
was interesting because do you know the show United Shades of America on CNN? It's like a travelogue documentary show where a black comedian by the name of Kamai Bell goes around to these various places. Like he interviewed Richard Spencer, and he went to the poorest white city in America, and he does all these things. In one episode, he went to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And interviewed a comic book creator, a guy who had drawn for Marvel Comics, still does, but he's created this female superhero for the Puerto Rican market who is Puerto Rican. And they went through the whole concept of this legacy character situation. Instead of creating new characters, they make Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan, and instead of Carol, God, I almost said Danvers, wrong character. But, they take her from being this buxom blonde woman to a young Muslim girl, or they make Spider-Man from Peter Parker to Miles Morales. They're basically swapping the suit to someone else. And this black guy and this Puerto Rican guy described the experience of seeing this as expecting non-white audiences to be happy with hand-me-down clothes. And I thought that was so interesting. Analogy. Yeah, because, if they ever made they did make a Mortal Kombat movie, right? But Jax in Mortal Kombat, for instance, started as a black dude. So there's absolutely no question if an actor would have played Jax, who would play that character?
Yeah.
Liu Kang is not going to be played by George Clooney, ever. Yes. He's based on Bruce Lee, right? And that, to me, is profoundly different than this constant imposter syndrome inherent in, we're going to make Spider-Man a black Hispanic guy now, and we're going to make Thor a woman. It's not the same.
No, it's companies trying way too hard to, hey, look, we're being inclusive. Hey, it's very obvious that it's totally, fake and saccharine and artificial, but hey, look, we're being inclusive. It's kind of like how I hear a lot of black people, and they have a very good point. They don't like BET because BET is such a fabricated here's black television for you. Here's this black television. There's a lot of black people that I know that are like, we don't want this. Why do we have this stupid ass, fake ass station that's for us? Like, it's the same thing. It's corporations trying to be desperately inclusive because they're trying to maximize profit right now because of the fact that right now everyone's trying to be politically correct. So even there's TV shows that I watched there. Ironically, there was a black trans woman in this show. I forgot the name of the show because I would say it right now, but I totally forgot it. My fiance was watching it, and I'm like, I know why they're doing it. They got to make sure that everyone's happy. They got to make sure.
Yeah. And yet, then I watch a show like, Elementary, which everyone's like, you like that show? I'm like, no, it's like one of the best shows on television in a lot of ways.
I like Elementary.
That is a show, where it's not that they made Watson a Asian woman. They made Watson Lucy Liu. And that distinction
it's kind of different. Yeah, I agree.
So different.
She fits that role good, though. See, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, that's so. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but that's I watch it and I'm like, you know what? She fits it. It works. It doesn't feel like let's shoehorn in a woman and an Asian woman because we have to make sure we fit our we're not offending anyone quota. For some reason with that, it works. But then we're like, I watched Spider-Man Homecoming. There's another thing I'm not going to because it's a huge spoiler. Where I see a guy's wife and I'm like, you're really trying here. Yeah. You're trying, you know what I'm talking about, man.
Mr. Blue Collar with the 2017 trophy wife.
Yeah. And I'm just like, man, but that's the thing. And it happens now, like how many times we're seeing games now where people are like, oh, you didn't include a woman in here, so I'm pissed off, or you didn't include a person of color here, so I'm pissed. And it's just like, everyone needs to stop, man, because it's starting to hurt the creativity. It's pissing me off.
Well, and I had a real issue with Uncharted 4 in that they hired Laura Bailey, and then some point during the development process, they decided they were just going to make the character black. Laura Bailey is the Disney princess of video game voice work.
Okay.
You know, and
I think I heard about this before. Yeah,
to make her this, not just a black woman, but the black daughter of a mercenary warlord. It just didn't work for me. And I was constantly kicked out of the game because it was just like, all I can hear is Laura Bailey. And, you know, and it's funny because then with others, like on Supergirl, I'm not bothered that Maggie Sawyer's a brown woman. You know, because the important thing about Maggie Sawyer in DC Comics lore is not that she's blonde, it's that she's a lesbian. Mm-hmm. And they kept that. And I can't imagine somebody playing that part better. And it's the same way with the version of Dr. Watson that they did for Elementary. I can't imagine anybody but Lucy Liu. That deadpan, that kind of snippy strength. It works. And the fact that Mrs. Hudson on that show is a trans woman. They made it seem like it made sense for that Sherlock Holmes because he surrounds himself with people who are interesting. You know?
And when it works, you're basically nailing what I'm thinking as you're saying it. When it works, I'm okay with it. It has nothing to do with, I don't want a black person to be in this game or this movie. I don't care. But when I feel like it's forced in there and it just doesn't naturally work and you're just like, wait, what the, like with Uncharted 4, like, wait, what the fuck is going on? This doesn't even make sense right now. That's when I get annoyed. But if it's like Lucy Liu's character as Watson it works perfectly. Elementary, it took me a second to think of the name again.
And Watch Dogs 2, the black trans woman in that. I haven't heard anybody complain about that because that's a character, that's her. There's a whole plot point on it. It's just, all right, we get to know this person as an individual. And the fact that she's black is part of it. The fact that she's trans is part of it. The fact that she's a politician is part of it. The fact that she grew up with the main character is part of it. We are introduced to her as a whole person instead of having to decide how we feel about a black trans woman politician in this game. We're like, what's her name? Like Miranda or something like that. How do we feel about her in this game? And that's a totally different question, you know, and it's almost not fair to throw this at people because you know and I know that the minute people start going, the doctor's a woman, everybody goes, oh God, can I remove myself from this conversation? Because this is going to go badly. Exactly. Yeah. You know, as opposed to the doctor is this actor and we're taking this approach. You know, this is the Doctor Who version of Lucy Liu as Dr. Watson on Elementary.
I think this also proves to you more is that Anita Sarkeesian has to put her nose in stupid fucking places to make sure she keeps making money.
Okay, but then she stepped in her own shit a couple days later.
Okay, how did she step in her own shit? Because like I said, I was totally separate from this. So what happened?
Yeah, in her Planet of the Apes review, which was not a review, it was more thoughts that bubbled into her brain thanks to Planet of the Apes. She compares the monkeys, which are the characters from an established property of which this is a prequel, to black people.
Oh no. She does realize that Planet of the Apes has been a thing for fucking ever, right? And that her argument was they never make any attempt to say another version that was not hypermasculine violence. And it's like, well, no, they don't, because this is the story of how the Planet of the Apes became the Planet of the Apes. It presupposes it ended in the near annihilation of the human species. She misses that context, and in doing so, compares the Woody Harrelson character to Nazis and white supremacists, and the monkeys, which, if you sort of watch it all along, is sort of an animal cruelty metaphor to black people. And it's like, you
You know, you saw Inherit the Wind, right? Like, you understand why the Scopes monkey trials were something of a thing? You want to go there?
God.
Really?
She always misses some glaring point with whenever she... Like she did with you explained, I think, during our first podcast with Breath of the Wild, how she was complaining about the whole damsel in distress thing. She always misses, like, some glaring, obvious point that she almost self-defeats herself with.
But this is actually stepping into racism.
Yeah.
Like, this is beyond that. The movie... And
she's almost making herself seem racist by what she's doing.
By making the fable, and whenever you put animals, anthropomorphized animals in a story, you have a fable, like Aesop's, you know, the grasshopper and the ant, or the crow and the scorpion, and all that stuff. It's a storytelling tradition. And animal fables, the thing that's great about them, I mean, Zootopia is another incredible example of a great piece of filmmaking that way. Zootopia and Planet of the Apes deal with sort of bigotry and dominance in their own ways, but you buy into the particulars of this story, as opposed to this is about racism, or this is about, you know, Zootopia, yeah, you have kind of that sexism thing, you have kind of the racism thing, but it's actually not that. It's that she's a bunny and he's a fox.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like the mental health stigma and all that stuff, but it never actually says this is about racism. It's like, no, this is about foxes and bunnies learning to understand each other. And I think that if you too narrowly try to create a parallel in your fable, then your fable loses a certain amount of power. And the thing that I love about the Planet of the Apes prequels is that it is the story of Caesar. And you have to suspend disbelief that an Alzheimer's treatment would create this hyper-intelligent monkey, right? And you get to know the monkey, and you get to understand the monkey's humanity, and even then you have the disconnect, right? Yeah. This is where monkeys are not humans, but the monkey can talk and feel and loves people and wants to protect his family. So why do we care that the monkey isn't human? And that's the question. It's not about race, right? It's not about any other metaphor. We are actually challenged by presupposing the humanity of a monkey, something that we as a species, all races as a species, have used as a science experiment. We don't have to go to race. We all own that.
Yeah, that is so that it's basically exposing a glaring human flaw is their lack of empathy, but is really what it comes. That's more so what I see from Planet of the Apes, because that's what it's been built upon, as far as I know. You know, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with more so animal cruelty, if nothing else.
And tribalism, small t.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the monkeys get in charge and they treat the humans just as badly as the humans treated the monkeys. And oh, wow, there are so many historical conflicts that resonates with.
Yeah.
But when you reduce a fable to like something hardwired real world, and this was my complaint with the first Avengers film as well, instead of Loki being Loki and him being this well-crafted villain, which I think the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming actually was. But, you know, he is situationally the random type of evil they need for that scene. So when he's in a scene with Captain America, all of a sudden he's Norse Hitler. Out of the blue. Didn't come from anywhere. It's just, well, that's the kind of evil we need in this scene. So Norse Hitler. And then, you know, he's in a movie with Black Widow, and all of a sudden he's Norse misogynist. Out of nowhere. You know, all of a sudden saying horrible things about her because she's female, even though the character in the original Thor he was most attached to was his mother. And then when he's in a scene with Hulk, he's Norse ragdoll. Nothing in his backstory indicated he could even survive that. You know, and so he's just kind of this whack-a-mole of characterization. There's nothing consistent about it. And that almost seems to be the sort of villain that these identity politics junkies want. Like they are more interested in how a particular scene in a film or a film as a whole reaffirms their specific and very selfish view of the world than looking at a film as something that will reaffirm on one level and challenge on another. And that, you know, that challenging element of art is the thing that I feel a lot of people miss. You know, and the fact that people can just have
totally miss it.
Yeah. Like these really, we could probably do 3 hours just on Spider-Man Homecoming.
We could probably do more than that.
Yeah.
I honestly, it wasn't really that thrill of Spider-Man Homecoming, to be honest with you. It felt more like a campy after school special. But
see, I felt like it was the Breakfast Club with superheroes.
Did you really?
Yeah, I felt like it was sort of Liz was the Molly Ringwald character, and Ali Sheedy was the Zendaya character, and Ned was Ducky, you know, and you know, it was sort of that Peter was the kind of Emilio Estevez character in the Breakfast Club. I felt it was very John Hughesy. And
what did you think of the new Peter Parker?
I have to preface this by saying Spider-Man was my first superhero.
Okay.
He was, I picked up a Spider-Man comic in the outhouse at my grandmother's cottage, and my cousin had left the Spider-Man comic there, and it was one of the ones where he was sitting on top of the Empire State Building, and he had a cold, and he sneezed into his mask, and I just thought this was a revelation. You know, like, oh wow, a superhero with real person problems. You know, the vulnerability inherent of Peter Parker getting sick. Wow, tell me more. Okay. You know? And so I am very attached to Spider-Man. I did not like the Tobey Maguire one at all.
Interesting. Okay.
I found him smug, and I found it campy, and it didn't have the sort of human... I don't go to see a Spider-Man film to see an old lady lose her house. I don't want Aunt May to be mired in misery the way they did there. And so when the Andrew Garfield reboot happened, I thought he was a great Spider-Man. Emma Stone was a great Gwen Stacy, but the movie in general was weak. You know, the Lizard as a villain was, you know, it was another origin story. So the villain was disposed of, and I'm like, the character's great, the movie's not so good. And then they went right to... Won't spoil it. I had no interest in seeing that story. I loved them so much as Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. I did not want to see what they were doing. You know, if you know about Spider-Man lore, you know what happens. So I was burned out on Spider-Man, you know. And then I saw Civil War, and I have not been a big fan of the Marvel ensemble films. I like the little standalones.
I know a lot of people that feel that way.
Yeah, I feel like the movies are just sort of the reunion tour. It's like Mass Effect 3, like just, oh, let's do the lap again, and then kind of a shitty, unsatisfying ending. But Spider-Man was so adorable in Civil War. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And while I'm too old to really connect to the whole high school homecoming dance thing, that was kind of central to the film. I really like that they let their 15-year-old Spider-Man be 15.
Yeah, because wasn't Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man much older? Not much older, yes. But...
He was already that Daily Bugle photographer version. And Spider-Man started off... It's interesting, because Spider-Man started off as a teenager in high school, and Liz, that character, was actually the first love interest. She kind of went by the wayside. After years, Mary Jane came in, and then they gave Gwen Stacy retroactively as kind of Spidey's first girlfriend. But I liked the fact that they let a 15-year-old kid be 15. There were other things I love the way they used Captain America. I thought that was really fun.
That was funny, yeah.
Yeah. I loved Michael Keaton.
Yes, Michael Keaton's good in anything. You could put him in... You could hand him a script from a porn, he would make it seem, you know, convincing. And
to see him in a superhero movie again after he got blacklisted with The Dark Knight and the Tim Burton film. Sorry, not The Dark Knight, Batman.
Why did he get blacklisted? That's interesting.
I get this wrong all the time. Either Tim Burton dropped out, and so Keaton dropped out. Or Keaton dropped out and Tim Burton dropped out. But basically, after that dynamic duo, pardon the pun, left, we got the Jack Nicholson Joker Batman film. And then we got the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman film. Then the Batman franchise completely shit the bed. We got that weird, we got Batman that weird, Forever. Val Kilmer one, and then those Schumacher things. Let's not talk about those.
Nipples on the batsuit, it's so necessary for a batsuit.
For some reason, Michael Keaton got blamed for killing the franchise. And so he got blacklisted. Nobody would hire him. The same way when Johnny Depp wanted out of 21 Jump Street, he was corporal clinging the shit out of getting out of that role, suggesting that they give him a story that he was addicted to peanut butter and things like that. He got blacklisted for a while because if you leave a show and the show tanks, you get blamed.
And there's too much money on the line, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're like, this is a franchise. You were supposed to be this franchise. How dare you leave? And, this is why Hugh Jackman is doing every Wolverine movie they throw at him, no matter how hard. It's like, oh my God, I've done 26 of these films. Here we go again, bub, snick, you got to be really careful. And I mean, this is why Robert Downey Jr. has so telegraphed that he wants out of Iron Man, but they keep bringing him back. It is a real concern that you get blacklisted if you leave a successful franchise.
Well, because there's a bunch of people who want to make money off that franchise, and if your face is part of that franchise and you leave and people are like, I'm not seeing that now because the face of the franchise is gone, bunch of people who are heavily invested financially are going to lose money and they're going to hate you.
Exactly. And so Michael Keaton's sort of comeback vehicle was Birdman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was a bleak film. It was really very much, he's playing a guy who played a superhero who was kind of washed up. It's like, yikes, that's a dark place for an actor to go, and it's so weird because, he was a comedian. He was a dark comic actor. He did Beetlejuice and the Dream Team, and all of a sudden he's Batman.
Yeah, that was such. I watched the biography and how he got Batman, and they were like, I remember they had the studio heads going, Michael Keaton, that Michael Keaton, you want him?
And
as Batman?
There's one scene in the Batman films that make Michael Keaton my Batman. Well, Mark Hamill's my Joker, but Michael Keaton's my Batman. And it was that scene he's trying to pull the Bruce Wayne by the fireplace, and he's trying to play it all cool, and then all of a sudden he just gets this flash and bam, slams his hand down. So you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. And then it's gone. And I'm like, that is that on the edge, not quite sane I would expect from a guy who has millions of dollars and spends every night dressed up like a bat, hanging off buildings, trying to die, It felt real, and I got why they cast him against type, but he was persona non grata for so long, and then he came back as Birdman, and so the fact they cast him as the Vulture, and this kind of working class hero, and the nobility, and then every scene he had with Michael Mandow, I was like, Vas, I was so excited. I'm so stoked for the idea that Michael Mandow might be the Scorpion in the next Batman film. That potential just makes me so excited and possibly biases me about the movie. But from a purely emotional level, I think I actually like Spider-Man Homecoming more than Wonder Woman.
I haven't seen Wonder Woman, so I can't I've seen Spider-Man Homecoming was okay to me. There were just things about it that I didn't like with the writing. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't. People were like, "Oh my god, so mind blowing." I'm like, okay.
It was kind of obvious in places.
Yeah, it just felt like we really have to squeeze this in here. How are we writing it in? Oh, okay, we're not going to really try too hard to make it. We're just going to make it seem as unnatural as possible. I felt that happen a few times without spoiling anything.
I did love that it was Guilfoyle from Silicon Valley as the teacher.
Was it?
Yeah, it was the same actor, and he was his voice sounded different. I'm like, damn, dude can act.
Oh, crap! That totally flew over my head.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
But it was an okay movie.
What's been your favorite movie of the summer so far?
I haven't really seen anything. You realize I haven't had time to see anything for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
That was the first movie I've seen. I'm hoping that I get to see some other stuff, but I want to see Wonder Woman. I'll probably go because there's people who aren't even into like comic book character movies that are liking Wonder Woman. So that sounds like it's a good sign.
I don't want to. Maybe it's good I'm downplaying your expectations.
Yeah.
Because I felt like they could have gotten 2 totally solid movies out of what they did with Wonder Woman. And instead they did 2 good but not great halves. And the thing that kind of saves it is that Gal Gadot is so good in that part that you kind of look around the fact that plot-wise everything's kind of thin.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, and like a great performance is a great performance. She should be rewarded. That is probably one of the toughest roles for any woman to play ever. Hats off to her. You know, but it definitely had that feel of a lot of cooks in the development process. And to give my bias, I like my favorite Marvel movies are the less popular ones. So the original Captain America, the original Thor, and Ant-Man.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, those are my favorite Marvel films so far. Just because they were exactly what they intended to be and nothing else. You know, like the original Thor was a Ant-Man was an Edgar Wright vehicle mostly. Thor was a Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare with superheroes. And then the original Captain America was just a Steve McQueen homage.
Okay.
I'm good with all of that. The films were what they were. And, similarly, I feel like these Planet of the Apes films are what they are. And if you try to read your own politics into a very elaborate animal fable, you're missing the point. You are subjecting yourself to the arrogance that the film is cautioning against. Like, no, this isn't about different types of humans. This is about us in general feeling like we somehow own the world.
Yeah, it's about our arrogance.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it. It's about our arrogance.
We're somehow better than animals. And, here I am. We spent all this time talking about my vegan recipes, and I'm this crazy cat lady who has a dog as well. I mean, I don't really see humans as uniquely special. And I see a Planet of the Apes movie.
We're not uniquely special. We think we're uniquely special.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And then you go, if there's another species as intelligent, if not more so, out there in the galaxy somewhere, we're going to be in for a rude awakening if they finally meet us, especially if they're superior to us.
Well, on that note, I'm interested about this thing you brought up. I forget the name of it. What is this tech thing from, is it AMD?
Oh, man, that was a good segue. AMD, AMD has been kicking ass and taking names. They have come out with their Ryzen processors. Actually, they sent me their Ryzen 7 chips to test out, and they have been phenomenal. How much is that? I'm going to look it up as we say this right as I'm doing this right now. The Ryzen 7 1800X is the machine I'm actually recording this on right now. The
Threadripper you were mentioning.
Threadripper is what I'm going to talk about. But they like right now, for example, I have the Ryzen 7 1800X in my machine. It's an 8-core processor which has 16 threads. So that means each core can handle 2 threads of code at once. Basically, is how that works.
Nice.
It's $429 on Newegg right now. I can compare this rig to my 5960X from Intel, and they go toe to toe. And that chip went for $1,000 plus. So for less than half the price, you're getting the same performance, if not in some cases superior performance. With gaming, it's a little bit behind the AMD chip, but I game on this thing all the time, and I have zero complaints. Okay. Now, AMD is coming out with, I'm looking this up again as I type this because I had everything off the top of my head. I just want to make sure. They're coming out with the Threadripper chips. Okay. Now, Threadripper chips are no joke. The top of the line one is going to have 16 cores. Okay, that is the 1950X, 16 cores and 32 threads. And
holy shit.
Yep, and it is going to go. This is a lot of money still, but for what you're getting, okay, you're getting its base frequency is 3.4 gigahertz, goes up to turbos to 4, which is impressive for 16 cores. 32 megabits of L3 cache. Its TDP is 180 watts, which I expect a chip with that many cores to be fairly high. They give you access to all the PCIe lanes, so on and so forth. It's going for $999.
Can support a terabyte of system RAM.
Yes, a terabyte.
Woo!
That a lot of articles updated that. They didn't know that at first. A terabyte of system RAM for $1,000. Now, if you compare that to, for example, they have the Intel Core i9, which is going to have just 2 more cores, and it's going to be 30. So it's going to be 18 cores and 36 threads. Intel is asking $2,000 for that chip. Dang. Now it could have the performance gap could be there. Now, for example, they have the Intel Core i9, the 7900X, which has 10 cores. Okay, 6 cores behind the AMD, and I understand there's more behind it, this architecture and stuff. It's not just straight up core counts, because there's some phones that have 8 cores in them. It's obviously not going to compare to my quad core i7 that I have in one of my machines, but you're still getting like less performance. They actually showed it from this Intel chip that has 10 cores, and it's going for the same price as the top of the line.
It's got AMD 64 chip. PCIe lanes too. Holy crap.
Yeah, they give you a full access, whereas unless you get the top end Intel chips, you don't get full access to all the PCIe lanes. And it was funny, the AMD actually showed, now the AMD has this chip that's a step down. That's a 12-core, 24-thread chip that is going for $200 less than that Intel chip. And they showed, what was the benchmark again? The Cinebench. And that chip that's $200 less outperformed the Intel chip, which is $200 more. And on top of that chip, the one from Intel, it's going for $999. The top of the line chip from AMD, which will wipe the floor with that chip, is the same price.
Interesting, though, they went for quad channel DDR4 instead of DDR5.
They're not going to go with DDR5 yet. Yeah. It's not. That needs to be. It's not there. It's not there yet for them to do it.
I wonder if they'll bring out, like in 6 months or something like that, they'll bring out a new version of this chip with DDR5 then, because if they do, whoa.
That may happen. Now, it's interesting, too, like the Alienware, you can already get a pre-order of Alienware. They have a Threadripper edition machine coming out. It's interesting that Alienware is jumping on that bandwagon, because
you could always select AMD or NVIDIA chips.
Well, no, I'm talking about AMD. The Threadripper Edition PC is going to have the 16-core chip in there, the processor.
But when you build your Alienware, it actually comes with an AMD processor standard. You have to pick an NVIDIA chip. Sorry, AMD video card standard. You have to pick the NVIDIA video card. It's you're right. They were i7s.
Well,
i5s and i7 standards.
Well, I'm more so surprised that they're even trying to market this through a gaming company like Alienware, because you do not need I think maybe there are some RTSs that use 6 cores right now on a CPU. So getting if you're buying a system for just gaming, a 16-core processor is going to do nothing for you. Hell, I don't even really think there's that many productivity software that's going beyond like 12.
You know what, though? I will say, as an Alienware laptop owner, an Alienware 15 owner, it's not just the gaming. It's the fact that Windows 10 is doing all this gymnastic shit in the background while you're playing your game. And then you got your NVIDIA Shield Lock or whatever the fuck it is, your butt fuck video capture, whatever. There's all this stuff happening on top of your gaming experience that you actually do need this beast of a computer to handle it all and not get so hot that you can't have it sitting on like a table, like a Formica table or something like that.
Or I'll let you continue what we're going to say.
Yeah, so I mean, I can see, especially since if you get a laptop, you're going to want to keep it for 2 or 3 years, and they're not that easy to upgrade. So it's interesting because this seems like they're moving away from their back port, that extra thing where you can put in a video card to keep it more current. But this is interesting to me.
Well, what's interesting to me beyond that Alienware machine is that the last time AMD is absolutely, well, they're now competitive again. And this has been the first time AMD has been truly competitive with Intel since like their Athlon days. I'm talking like they're back like when the Pentium 4 was king. You know, it's so funny. AMD, like what happened after that is that when it went into like the multi-core, like when they went to the Core 2 Duo and the Athlon 64X2, when multi-core processors came out, Intel just kept on kicking AMD's ass. And what AMD they went into the back burner and said, hey, we're the budget performer. We're the processor you get if you don't want to spend as much money, you don't have as much money,
but you want to build a smaller computer.
And we'll still hold it down. You know, and the last time they had like even a chance of being in the same realm as AMD, and we're going back to like 2010, and then they came out with the AMD FX processors, and holy shit, AMD hyped those up. It's the first 8-core consumer processor. Get ready. You had people going out excited to buy their motherboards, and then the chips finally dropped, and they were basically on the same level as the mid-range offering from Intel. I'm talking like their i5s.
The Kirby likes, the i5 Kirby like stuff, yep.
The i5s. And everyone was disappointed. You had people who like pre-ordered motherboards waiting for the FX chips, like wanting to send their motherboards back because they're like, look, this is supposed to be an 8-core processor, and the mid-range quad-core from Intel is like what it's competing against. Like, what did I spend my money on? And what interested me the most about this was basically AMD's last chance to stay in the processor race, and holy shit, did they nail it out of the park? Because if they didn't, they would. I don't think AMD would be around the way because I think they had no choice but to do as well as they did. Because if they didn't, do you realize that before this, the last time they released a new architecture was in 2011?
Was it that long?
Yes. In the computer world, that's like 300 years.
Forget it.
Like their last chip that they made from the bottom up was the FX chip, and that came out in 2011. So this is a really big deal. And now it's funny too, because you see Intel kind of panicking. Like that 18-core chip, you could watch a video from Linus Tech Tips, and there's like the motherboard manufacturers, like Intel, is like, holy crap, we need to come out with something to compete. And the motherboard manufacturers getting pissed off at Intel because they basically kind of rushed this chip to market. And they're like, okay, like we don't really know what to put in the motherboards. Like this is confusing, because Intel was like, yeah, we need a response, and we don't know what the hell the response is. So this is a big deal, man. And it'll be interesting too, because I'm starting to do like 4K video editing, and uploading videos in 4K. I don't care, like even my this rig, which is the 1800X is a great chip, and I have a 8-core chip from Intel. Rendering 4K video is slow.
Yeah. Well, 4K is just big. Period.
It's a lot of bandwidth. Even if you use GPU acceleration, it's like it's crawls. Like you go from 1080p, like this thing eats up 1080p video, even at 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
It's like when I render a file, it's like almost in real time.
Yeah.
But now if I try to do 4K, it's like if I do like 3 videos a day would probably take me like 16 hours because it just slows down the machine to nothing.
In 4K, yeah, I'm just starting to play with that. And yeah.
What do you edit in? What is your software? Do you use Premiere?
Premiere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using. I still use. I have it. I pay monthly for it. I have the whole suite from Premiere. Or a whole suite from Adobe, excuse me.
Creative Cloud stuff.
Yeah, I have the Creative Cloud stuff, so I'm going to start using that with this. But the thing people got to keep in mind too is that not especially even productivity stuff. Okay, I know there's a lot of people, because it's expensive, but that's a really good price for that powerful of a chip. Don't expect to go home and see Premiere and other software just eat up all those cores, because it's not ready for it yet.
Right. It's not designed to work on that many channels yet, but it's coming.
Games, forget about it. Like that's why I think it's funny that Alienware is offering this Threadripper machine, because it's like, what game is good? Like I said, the most cores that a game will use, I think, is 6. I looked it up, and there's some RTSs that use 6. Anything beyond that is just, what are you doing?
Alienware tends to do their dream machine though. you know, like the equivalent of a supercar. Just, I know I go in there and I drool over it. I remember that Area 51 machine they had.
It's a penis compensation computer.
I get sucked into it. I admit, I sit there looking at, and it's almost just like a work of art because they open it up and you can look at the architecture and how they built it. And it's just neat. You know, it's the sports car. It's the same way, you know, we all thought, what the hell was it? Forza was douchey. I don't care about a Porsche, you know, but Alienware's high-end machines, I admit, I get excited because the ridiculous now in 4 or 5 years is going to be somewhat
mainstream.
Standard.
It's going to be mainstream.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, too, to see Intel's panicking to the point that they're talking shit. They're calling AMD 16-core chip to 8-core processors slapped together with glue. It's like, come on, who cares what they do? Like, yeah, the chip is like the size of a dinner plate, too, but if it does its job, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all it needs to do. It needs to do its job. And if it does its job and software I use starts utilizing all 16 cores, especially like photo and video editing, I don't care if there literally is Elmer's glue on the chip. So long as it doesn't break, if it's doing its job, it's all that matters. But the interesting thing is, too, is that the AMD chips, the Threadrippers, which this is amazing because a lot of times, especially Intel, they don't include a cooler at all.
No,
AMD is planning to bundle an AIO liquid cooling loop with the Ryzen Threadripper. So all you got to do is get this chip and put it in your, well, granted, you got to build the computer and, you know, do all the other stuff. And I'm sure people are going to try to overclock the shit out of it, but you don't even need to buy a cooler, which for an enthusiast chip is usually unheard of where they don't include a cooler. Hell, even with the Ryzen 7 chips, they didn't include a cooler. You got to buy one.
I think that they should. Like, I think that should become standard. If you are if you are producing a product that has this much going on, you should be giving someone something that, okay, put this in your machine and it will work. You don't have to fart around. You don't have to guess. You don't have to upsell you on a fucking $100 cooler to go with your like $1,000 chip. Just give it to me. Tell me how this is supposed to work.
Their excuse, which is fairly weak sauce, but at the same time, I kind of get it, but I'm like, no, you could include a cooler, is that most people who buy this are going to get their own third-party cooler or build their own liquid cooling loop or whatever the case may be. I'm like, just at that point with the price, include one and let me choose. Okay, if I don't want to use it, that's fine, but give me even an air passive cooler.
They're also really giving people a lot of, you know, they're giving a DIY consumer base a lot of credit for knowing what the fuck they're doing.
Yes.
I'm not convinced based on the things I've personally fucked up with on computers over the years. I've wasted a lot of money just through sheer incompetence. And so I think that if they want people PC gaming, if they want it to become more of an enthusiast plus kind of a corona of, you know, interest, they need to make this simpler for people. And the fans, and like, I feel like such a damn asshole when like there's more fans than my car has on my computer. Like, should it need that much? The thing I like about the 1050, 1060 series from the NVIDIA GPUs is they don't actually give off anywhere near the heat the 900 chips did. It's been really nice. I haven't had to worry, like I haven't had to watch it like a hawk when I'm gaming. But even still, I worry, you know, because my old 970 had that cooler right on it. So there was software on that. I could monitor it. If it got above 40, I'm like, no, blast it. That's what this chip is offering. And I admit, as somebody who had it and doesn't have it anymore, it's a really nice thing to have.
Well, that's why a lot of times with you ask enthusiasts, especially if they're going out and buying a graphics card, they like buying the third party companies from NVIDIA and AMD because they put better coolers on them than the
Asus ones are great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Asus are fantastic, and MSI too. Because a lot of times they'll do the first party coolers are those blower styles that the fan has to basically spin like a fucking turbine for it to cool. And they usually don't do that good of a job, even though there's sometimes those are ideal for certain kind of computer setups if there's not that much airflow in the case. But still, yeah, this is going to be interesting, man, because this is one thing I want to see them do. I know I'm jumping topics, but I would love to see them find a way to put these Ryzen chips inside of laptops. And if they do that, like a full fat, like put the whole 8-core 16 thread inside of a laptop and do it so it's properly cooled and all that. Because if they get that to work, then AMD's in some deep shit. Because AMD hasn't gone beyond quad cores as far as I know inside of a laptop, unless there's some like ridiculous like $10,000 laptop that has some kind of custom desktop chip in there. But if they get that down, it's just amazing to see how much AMD has turned around, because they were like, people even like a year and a half ago were counting them out saying they were in trouble and doomed.
There's no reason they couldn't, as long as they get proper heat channeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that previous generation of Asus laptops where, you know, it was like a jet engine in the back there.
So annoying.
But the internal temperatures were fine. I mean, that was the thing I was actually really impressed with in the Alienware laptops, is how cool they run.
Well, that's because they make them fatter. If you notice that they're thicker. I had a gigabyte laptop and I sold it to someone in full faith, and you know what? They love it. They still use it to this day. It was just, there's nothing wrong with it, but it was so thin. And this was back with the older dedicated graphics in them. It was banana yellow too. Why I chose that color is beyond me, but whatever. A big fat guy woke up with a giant yellow laptop, but it was thin. But when to game, even if you had it on like one of those little cooler stand fan things, it was like deafeningly loud, and there was nothing wrong with it. It's just what it had to do to cool.
Yeah, it had to get that air out of there.
And if they find a way, like I know that NVIDIA just came out with some like their 1080 laptop chips and stuff like that, where I forgot what it's called, where it runs cooler because they cut down the clock speeds, but you still get a bunch of performance. Like,
well, they're also more heat tolerant as well. They run better at 60 plus degrees, which is pretty impressive.
I got to find what it is. I think it's NVIDIA Q. No, I'll figure out what it is. But it's just a very interesting time, because now this is good, though, because this is what needed to happen, because Intel became lazy slobs. All they would do with their new chips, it's true, I'm not even being funny, it's we have another quad core, you get 5% more performance. Oh, here's another one next year, 5% more performance. And then here's AMD that comes out, hey, we have a chip that's less than half the price of Intel's Enthusiast 8-core, and we're going toe-to-toe with them. And Intel's like, holy shit, we just can't release regurgitated quad cores anymore. What are we gonna do? And that needed to happen, man, because it was just getting to the point where it was just getting fucking boring.
See, I think this is VR goosing the industry, too, because that's really the thing that's going to benefit from, you know, this hyper threading and all this extra RAM. Like, conventional monitor computing, you don't need this. But if you are into VR, or, you know, you're thinking of taking that leap, yeah, those games can, because there's so much going on because of the way it's taking in information in terms of, you know, perspective, and the refresh rate on those things is so ridiculously fast that it needs the extra channels of processing.
Well, it's also, these are great for content creation people too, because it was all of these more than 4-core chips in general, minus the FX. I won't call it garbage. Well, yeah, I could call it garbage now because AMD's moved on. The 8-core FX garbage that AMD was offering was so insanely expensive. Like Intel for the previous generation had a 10-core chip. They were asking $2,000 for it. $2,000 for a chip.
They're going to have to educate people about the fact that this is what it does, though, because a lot of content creators, they are just fine with sitting there waiting for something to render for 4 hours.
I have no patience, especially now, because I've seen the other side of having these heavy multi-core processors. I couldn't go back to like an i5 and just like, all right, I'm going to wait 3 fucking hours for one video that's 10 minutes long. I would rather bang my head against the monitor.
But I think they gotta get it in the hands of people like you and have you try it to see how different it is. Because it's the frog in the boiling water, right? Like people, if they don't think they have an alternative to render times, then they just plan it into their day.
Like I was using, it was funny, the laptop now, rest in peace, because water killed it. It's a fairly beast laptop, or was. Again, it's gone. Had a 1080 in it, had a Core i7, but it was a quad-core processor. And I was editing video when I was in Florida, actually, the podcast that we did. And I'm like, I could never do this on a... How do people do this on a daily basis with a machine like this? And it's not fair, because now, until AMD, that price of entry to get that content creation chip with 8 cores and 16 threads was like $1,000 from Intel. Now it's like, okay, now it's still not cheap. I mean, $450 for a chip is not, it's, oh, look at my pocket change, let me go out and buy 5. But it's still, it's something...
That's a little high, but that's not
but it's still
terribly above what a decent future-proof chip will run.
Yes, and you're not going to have to sell your body in the street to go buy it. That's what I'm saying. So... AMD has definitely stirred up the market, and they've saved themselves too, because honestly, if that's what I think, we haven't seen a chip from them in 2011, because when FX was such a, not that it was, okay, yes, it was pretty much a miserable failure. I'm not talking sales numbers, but it was very disappointing. They had to basically build the architecture from the ground up. They couldn't just build upon FX because it was so underperforming compared to their competition. They had to go from the ground up, and that's why that's unheard of, to not see a new product from a company for 6 years. Or
that's a long time. Or
better yet, no, they came out with a more refined version. There was the FX 8150, they came out with the 8350, and they kind of made like iterations of it where it ran a little bit less power and a little bit cooler, but it was the same architecture. They have the same architecture, I should say, for listen to me. For 6 years is like sacrilegious, but they did it.
AMD was the chip you got if you couldn't afford Nvidia. Like if you couldn't afford Intel, sorry, not Nvidia, Intel. If you couldn't afford Intel, you got an AMD chip. That's what it was. It was competing on price.
But now they're back in the days though. Like even though they were cheaper, like back when the Pentium 4 was their competitor, that was like, someone's trying to call me now. That was like, you not only did you spend less money on AMD's equivalent offering, it was cheaper. So you're spending less money, just like now.
Was it even called AMD back then?
Yes, it was called AMD back then. It was AMD, yeah. They had the Athlon 6, and I think they made the first 64-bit chip. They beat Intel to the punch with 64-bit architecture, having 64-bit processors.
I'm wondering, because we opened up a really old computer a week ago. We actually had to steal the case for various reasons, and it had old ATI stuff in it.
Well, AMD,
like, oh damn!
AMD bought ATI, and that's how they got their dedicated graphics card division. There was also
that was the last time I was anywhere near something AMD, and it was right around that period.
And there was another company from like the 90s that was called Cyrix. So
like the Mortal Kombat character?
Yeah, Cyrix. They were like this little, not fly-by-night, but they were another. Fly-by-night, I mean to say, but they were another processor company. They were in the mid-90s. They're now dead and long gone. But AMD's back, and they're affordable now. It's just kind of amazing to see them back. It was an important chip for them because, like I said, I don't think that AMD would have had another chance if Ryzen and Threadripper, when we weren't so successful. I mean, Threadripper technically isn't out yet, so assuming it's going to be a success may be bold, but they're competition is more money, and they're going toe-to-toe with it, significantly more money. So AMD is in the right place, man. I'm looking forward to getting it because I want to see how much it helps you with 4K rendering. But hey, they need to get their upgrade software working a little better, though. With their graphics cards, yes, I agree. AMD, they're much better. I tolerate them now. AMD Radeon graphics cards, I like them. I still prefer. The updates suck. Yes, I still prefer. Sorry, guys, I still prefer NVIDIA. I know that makes people, oh, AMD is so much this. I hate you now. I'm never going to watch your videos again. Whatever. But I'm just AMD's. Yeah, they're great. Their drivers and stuff still are aren't on the same level as NVIDIA's. And NVIDIA's have issues too, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, you'll get a bad install every so often. It'll drive you crazy, but it just it's still more that ecosystem, the sort of Intel NVIDIA ecosystem is still more user friendly.
What drives me insane is when you have a game, I know we're going off, but it's kind of on the same topic. When
it is on the same topic. I think I know where you're going with this.
When you have a game that you were playing, like Fallout 3 is a perfect example of this. I was playing Fallout 3, worked with Windows 10, no problem. Then they came out with a new driver. Every time you booted up Fallout 3, it would crash. That drives me insane. They need to find a way that drivers, I think drivers for graphics cards are their biggest Achilles heel, because every time a new game comes out, they basically have to come out with a new driver every single fucking time. You know, and that, okay, great, the newest game works, but now there may be 10 games from even like 2 years ago that I still like playing that now run like shit because of your drivers.
I never download a GPU driver on the day it pops up. I wait and see if it pops up again. And if it doesn't, I determine it's fairly stable. But I have been burned too many times with precisely what you described. Yeah,
that's one thing that AMD has to, if they want to, it's interesting because Intel doesn't own their own dedicated graphics company, whereas AMD does. But if they want to make it actually really go, or how ironic would it be if Intel buys NVIDIA? But I doubt that'll happen. But if they need to fix their drivers, man, they need to fix their drivers. They need to come out with more exciting GPUs too, because I'm still not, I have an RX 480, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not super thrilled with it. The 1060 I'm sending you, like, I keep on saying this week, but then shit happens, but I'm going to try to actually really send it to you this week.
I haven't had any opportunity to put it in anyway, so we're fine.
So, which you're getting the kick-ass one, by the way. It's going to have a nice cooler on it. You can overclock it.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, give me that cooler when you're saying.
Me having the flood actually worked out in your favor, because I forgot that I had that. I was going to keep it for another build, but then I'm like,
that's awesome.
The build I'm going to make is going to be with Threadripper, and I'm going to put a more powerful GPU in there anyway, but that thing has 3 huge fans on it. It's a gigabyte.
I'm excited because I need more. I haven't had any problems yet. I'm just so paranoid about heat.
No, that thing is cool. It's almost over. I think it's a lot, almost overkill for a 1060. Like they're like,
that is my sweet spot. I love overkill. But I mean, if AMD could start selling, because what NVIDIA does now, through at least my local computer shop, through Canada Computers, they sell bundles with an Intel processor and then an NVIDIA graphics card. And it's easy. You know they're compatible. You don't have to fart around. You know you're going to put it in and it works. You get the right motherboard. Awesome. You're off to the races. If AMD, and they should have an edge, because like you said, they actually own both.
Yeah.
If they could scoop Intel NVIDIA on compatibility, look out.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to, because they have it all there. They have it all in-house. They can test everything. It's all their shit.
They need to make more exciting GPUs too, because I bought the RX 480. Everyone was really excited about it. Everyone still really likes it. I personally own an RX 480. It's okay. It's not.
That's how I feel about mine too. It doesn't have enough output ports.
I'm talking performance. Like, everyone's like, I think it actually outperforms the GTX 1060, and I'm like, I'm using both, and I play the same games, have the newest drivers on both, and I see I see better performance with the 1060, and I've tried it on multiple computers too. But
I'm using my AMD GPU on just Wirecast video, like multi-camera stuff. I haven't had a problem with it per se, but the issue is they love those DisplayPort outputs. You know, the one that kind of looks like HDMI, but not quite.
Well, that's most NVIDIA. Like, my NVIDIA GPUs all have like only one HDMI.
Yeah, but this has no HDMI on it.
Oh, it's all DisplayPort. Okay.
It's one DisplayPort and then a parallel output. So you can only do 2 monitors.
Or you mean a DVI? Because it looks like parallel DVI.
Yeah, sorry, DVI. So yeah, parallel.
I'm like, parallel.
Yeah, DVI.
Like, man, is your graphics card from like? Is you wish she's got a computer from '97?
Yeah, no.
It does look like that. Yeah.
That's my age showing. I see anything with pins, like parallel pins.
No, I can see how you could. I can see how you could see that though. Yeah.
I always do that, but it's so frustrating because when I'm trying to explain to anybody else no, you need an adapter for your HDMI with your projector or your monitor or whatever else. And like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's DisplayPort. And most people go, huh?
Well, I remember, yeah, God, man, time is flying fast, because I remember when it was a big deal, like, to have a DVI port on a graphics card. Like, damn, it's all digital, it's not VGA, and now it's like...
And instead of that smaller one,
And now my 1080 Ti graphics card doesn't even have DVI on it. Like, that's it. It's like they have an adapter, just kind of like how they do with VGA. But it's like, they're moving on. Like,
is it the same? You have to screw it on the way you did the DVI to VGA adapters?
Yeah, I hated that. Yeah. That's why I'm so glad, like, VGA, and I'm kind of actually in a way glad that, because with DVI too, there's a ton of pins, and when you have all those pins, and you know, if someone doesn't take out the cable right, you risk bending them, which I've never personally done, but it's just a more fragile connector. Kind of like how S-Video, I don't know if any of you guys remember S-Video, because it's old. S-Video, first off, even if you see that, like, it had the 4 pins, even if you see how to plug it in, you're looking and you're gingerly doing it, it still was like you always had to finagle a little bit, and those were so easy to bend and break. But I like DisplayPort, and I like HDMI because you just plug it in. Well, DisplayPort, you gotta push the button down to pull it back out, but they're just like kind of plug and play, which I could see why they want to move on from DVI, so not sitting there screwing in crap and bending pins. And
well, and also Apple decided to go proprietary with their DVI. So I remember this one guy, he was a tech dude, and a whole bunch of people brought in their laptops to use projectors, and he'd have this like keychain of DVI formats. And he'd go, which one do you need? I'm like, you win, king of the nerds, sir. That was impressive. But why do we have to do that? Why can't we just have a standard format that works with everything? I don't care if it's 2 or 3 different cables, but the fact that it's called the same thing, but it's not the same pin set, that's when things got crazy for me.
Yeah. Technology is moving fast, man, and there's a lot of different, I want to see everything kind of move to complete standardization, because it makes life much easier. Because there's no reason, like, even with like HDMI and DisplayPort, I'm sure, I understand there's things that are superior about DisplayPort. I'm sure they can incorporate the technology into HDMI, and I would love to see everything just either move over, or either have TVs all move over to the DisplayPort, or have all computers move over HDMI and have all the tech with the higher refresh rates and higher resolutions be on both of them. I'm sure there's a way that there's many smart engineers that can make that happen. But all right, man, we are past 2 hours. There may be an issue with some of the video on this podcast, because I don't know what the hell just happened with my Aver. It stopped and started again. So
mine's running anyway too. So
thank God, thank God.
Redundancies. We have 2 different redundancies on each side, guys.
No, we have 4, because I record Aver, I record Audacity, and Liana records Aver, and Liana records Audacity. So when shit like that happens and Aver just randomly decides to shut off and start back up again, we're not totally shitting the bed.
We always have it.
And people are much happier too, by the way, with the audio quality.
Yay, we finally got it right.
Yeah, because now it sounds like studio quality as to, sounding like I was recording, like, that was bad. Like that one episode. Yeah,
Skype does not like audio modulation.
You would think, man, but then again, it's owned by Microsoft and they don't.
It's how compressed it is to keep it in sync with the video.
But you would think now, like, I have a 300 megabits per second up and download. Okay, I'm sure everyone's internet connection fluctuates. There's some people I know, I talk to them on Twitter, where they have like 1 megabit per second upload. That's because of the non-existent capitalism with competitive internet markets in the States. But if someone has the bandwidth, why don't you let it so it's not as compressed, so things sound cleaner? Microsoft
because
with Skype.
The majority of the companies, the majority of people are not you. The majority of people are, they're Skyping from their iPad.
And they don't give a shit. Yes,
over a half-shit wireless connection. Like, it's economies of scale, right? They're optimizing it for the limping gazelle, technically.
Or the soccer mom who just wants to talk to her kid who's in college, and that's all they really care about. That's their main audience. That's where the money is, and it's for them to spend the R&D, which could possibly be millions of dollars, to make it have better video quality and audio quality. It's not worth their time, because people like us are like 0.001%, where the rest of the population doesn't give a shit. But when you're trying to do a podcast, it's annoying.
Oh, they have Skype for Business that they want you to pay for, but I don't find it actually works much better.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. It doesn't work much better. So that's why there's other redundancies you can do to make it better. So, all right, guys, I hope this nice, delicious, long podcast where we went from talking about vegan food to AMD processors.
To Vermont. Man, to Bernie as Jesus.
Man, we had a whole smorgasbord in this podcast, but it was fun, though. I kind of like how random topics just come up out of nowhere. It's like kind of nice to almost not plan. Yeah. But we'll be back next week. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we will see you real soon. Have a good one.